A couple of years ago, I set a course record at a 102-mile race, and the last 10K, the last 6 miles were glorious and one of the most unbelievable experiences I've had, like in general, but especially when it comes to running. And I ran about a 45-minute 10K after already running 96 miles. Like my last 2 miles were a 6:40 and a 6:13, which was such a surprise and not something I was thinking about. I just knew I wanted to go hard for the last couple of miles when I got to that point. And there was a couple of things that really helped me be able to do that. And whether you're trying to set a course record or just finish an ultra or maybe get a PR for yourself, this is going to help you either way. There's a lot of things I could say, but one of the most valuable and important things I've done, and it's more than just back-to-back long runs, because that's what I'm going to talk about today is back-to-back long runs. But there's something specifically I do on that second long run on the next day, and this is what I believe has made a world of difference, maybe physically, but more so when it comes to the mentality or the mental game. If you don't know what a back-to-back long run is, this is just where your goal is to run a long run on like a Saturday and another long run on a Sunday. Typically with training, it's like you want a shorter run or a complete rest day after a long run. And absolutely that makes sense, and you don't want to overdo it or injure yourself, right? The thing that helps with the back-to-back long run, I don't necessarily have anything to like back this up per se as science. I'm not that kind of guy. I like to experiment. And when it comes to back long runs, I've typically not worried about the pace the second day. So let's say I do 20 miles on a Saturday and 15 miles on a Sunday, or 20 miles on a Saturday, 20 miles on a Sunday, or whatever day of the week you're doing back-to-back long runs. Typically, I don't worry about pace the second run. It's just getting used to being on tired legs. Now, here's the thing I can't really back up, but I promise you that it's helped me, is on that second long run the next day, I've liked to carve out a few miles, depending on the workout. It's not every time, but I carve out a couple of miles where I go faster, or maybe the whole run I'm trying to go faster. So for example, say I run 20 miles at a 10-minute mile pace. The next day, if I'm doing like 15 miles, I like to try and push on those days. There's absolutely risk of injury, but if you're doing the right things with recovery and stretching and strength training, I think that's mitigated. But I might run on that next day and try and average 8:30s for the 15 miles, or really just a 3-mile tempo block, and the rest I don't really care about the pace. So maybe I warm up for 5 miles, run a 7-minute mile average for 3 miles, and then close out the rest of the run, not really worrying about the pace. I like this not necessarily for a specific physical training stimulus, but because mentally I know I can do it. And that was one of the things that really helped in this 100-mile race, is when I went to push, I wanted to tune in and see what I could do. But when I wanted to push those last 6 miles, I had the experience under my belt of running 7-minute miles or 6:30s the day after a long run. And so I think a lot of people out there would be like, well, again, your risk of injury is higher. That's absolutely a part of it. It's not like I want you to kill yourself, but when you have that type of experience, you can kind of know how far you can push yourself when it's already tough, right? Like, it's nice to know what your typical pace is or how far you can run when you're rested, but what about when you're like beat? And so if you don't do the tempo, at least at the end of the day, you should be doing back-to-back long runs occasionally. I do them almost every week when I'm training for ultras, but every other week, maybe once a month, so you can get the stimulus and understanding really of what it's like to move on tired legs. And that, I think, is one of the most underrated things when it comes to ultras, but anyone who is successful or has just completed ultras in general knows that back-to-back long runs are a big part of the success and building strength and getting used to being on tired legs. So hopefully you got something out of this. I'd love to see if you try something like tempo the day after a long run, because it is kind of crazy. But that mental, block that is removed where you realize you can is important to me. So if you got something out of this and like running content, you should subscribe. If not, you don't want to, that's totally fine too. I hope you got something out of this either way, and I hope I get to see you in another video sometime soon. Peace.